3, 2, 1, and welcome back to episode 36 of Chasin the Racin with the good old Dom the Bomb.
I was just about to say, because obviously we haven't introduced ourselves since like the beginning. My God, a year ago, man.
I know, we should have brought a
year
birthday
ago.
cake or something. It almost exactly to the day this is out, the first podcast. I think it was Thursday last year as well, so pretty much bang on. And how the time's flown, eh?
I tell you what, that's absolutely terrifying. Now, it's mad. Like a year ago yesterday, and sorry to bring this straight up, but a year ago yesterday, I lost one of my best mates. Holly, like he passed away a year ago. And you just think, where the hell is that gone? Man?
Right, the first episode, it was just after Holly's funeral, wasn't it? Or was it the second episode?
It was Holly passed away. I was actually working down country, and then I travelled up and we did the first show, and it was just, and then the funeral, he was buried on the 21st of January, and it was just like, where's that gone, man? Mm-hmm. Where has that gone? But obviously, you know, he'll always be a miss, that round little hay bale with feet. He'll always be a miss. But it's but like, hey, Chrissy, what else can we say? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Obviously,
but we won't be having any cake this year because we're doing our weight loss challenge. How's that going for you?
Mate, you literally look like you've been hanging around with Victoria's Secret models. You're looking, I want to bang you. You're looking good, mate. You're looking good. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. So what's your secret? Are you sucking pipe, or you not doing pipe, or you anything to do with pipe at all?
I've been trying a few different things. I've been obviously trying to keep off the bad foods, you know, the sugars.
You walk me through your bad food.
Well,
this is the non-drinking athlete.
I've been trying to keep away from carbohydrates, so I've been like very sort of ketogenic style diet, so lots of meat, lots of fatty foods.
If you could see my face right now, listen to this. My face is like, oh my God.
And I've been doing lots of exercise and stuff. But to be honest, mate, I'm weighing myself every day, and I'm wanting it to be big steps, and it's just not. But it's difficult, isn't it, losing weight? There's no getting around it, but I am just chipping away each day, and we'll weigh each other at the end of the month and see who's...
What date are we going for? No, we actually need... No.
January.
End of January, but are we going literally
last day of January?
The last day of January,
we'll do that.
We're doing the weigh-in.
And I think we've got quite a few people playing along with us as well at on Instagram.
Which sounds rude.
I posted the pictures of the scales from like myself and when we did the weigh-in, so people can judge themselves against us, and maybe if anyone wants to chip in, obviously one of us will be sticking 100 quid to charity, but if anyone else wants to chip in, feel free and we'll add it on.
Have we picked the charity? Or is that still ongoing at the moment?
Yes, we've picked
Injured
the charity
riders.
Sorry,
I should keep my eye on the ball. Sorry, I'm starving myself, Chrissy. Me mind, I'm hallucinating. You know what I mean?
What about yourself? Are you taking?
I'm telling you nothing. Loose lips sink ships, young'un. I'm saying nothing.
Well, I tell you what. Before we get going with the podcast, obviously big thanks to our sponsors. So first of all, Incontango Training back again.
But when have they been here for a year?
Well, they've sponsored this full series, and it's actually the last episode of this series.
Jesus.
Episode 36 today,
Season 3.
Season 3.
We're going to end up like Friends, man. It's just going to get driven into the ground, isn't it?
So, Incontango Training, a leading risk, finance and treasury consultancy, but more important, bike racing fans. And if you want to check out more, go to www.incontangotraining.co.uk. They've got a nice website there, explains everything, so check that out. And also, big thank you to yourself. Was sponsored by James Hillier's company, so Your Motorbike, and that's Moto, M-O-T-O, yourmotorbike.co.uk.
I wonder how we got on in the endurance.
We'll have to have a catch up with him.
Hopefully he's not like brown bread, like, you know what I mean?
No, I was speaking to him today, and
all right.
I think
how was our James?
I think he's posted a picture on Instagram after the enduro, so he must have enjoyed himself. But anyway, go over to www.yourmotorbike.co.uk, and thanks to your good self for putting them up to a bit of a discount.
You
for
were about
our
to
lovely
say
listeners.
Something else there. You were thinking for being a cheeky little twat.
So obviously you asked him for a bit of discount, and he's came back, sponsored the episode,
good
man
across
his whole shop. So go online. Across all of his products, he's offering 10% discount to Chasin the Racing fans. So basically, you go on the website, pick some things you like, stick it over to put it in your basket, and then when you come to checkout, it'll say apply discount code. Discount code is CTR pod. So capital C, capital T, capital R, and then pod. CTR pod. You get 10% off. And I've looked on his website. He's got some cracking stuff, loads of top brands. Do you know AM dashers for Kawasaki's?
I was about to say, you put a great example. So
they're a grand. So you're getting like 100 quid off. Akapovic exhausts. I tell you what, a great. I think it's a very well priced. Drift do a little camera that it's up for 42 quid. So obviously take 10% off, 30 odd quid, and it's a 4K like a GoPro, top quality 4K, really good quality, and you're getting it for like 37 quid. So
can't grumble with that, can
head
you?
Head over, stick the discount code in, and get yourself some nice motorbike treats.
And obviously everyone loves James Hillier, so ring up, put a bad order in, and then just ring up and complain to him, and you get a good chance to speak to James Hillier. But obviously, like he says, eBay saturates every market. Like, bloody hell, look what it's done at the high street. Never mind an internet website, yourmoto.com. Please support a local, not local, he's a proper southerner, isn't he? But obviously support someone in our
small
sport.
Businesses.
You know what I mean? And please go, give him a ring, give him a check out, and then you can just find out for yourself.
So we've
give him a 5-star review, because that's what we're about on this show.
That's the one.
Hey, hold on, before you jump the gun, I know we didn't buy it from yourmoto.com, but speaking of cameras, what have you gone and done for the show, Chrissy?
So this is our first podcast using the new Canon. It's a G7X Mark II.
Hey, baby!
So this will be hopefully going out on YouTube, given that if we don't have any issues, and let us know your feedback on the camera, because we might get a couple more and make a bit more of an effort on the YouTube side of things, so that you can watch us as well as listen to us. But
God help you. Obviously, Chrissy's nice to look at. But, me, on the other hand, I'm like a turd with a flower put in it. You know what I mean?
So we've got a cracking podcast coming up for you today. We've already pre-recorded an interview with. He's probably one of the the biggest unknown quantities going into the BSB this year. A big change to the championship winning team. He's been with Tyco BMW for a good few years now, Christian, and he's stepping up to replace Scott Redden, who's won the championship. An amazing opportunity for him to shine, and
what a humble way of getting it. Obviously, you'll hear that in the interview how we got it, but he was actually a bit of a shock to me. Now, don't get me wrong. At no point did he display any qualities of being an outright arsehole, but he's a proper grounded lad. He's not scared to say what he's got, how he got it, but he's like, it's just salt.
Proper down to earth, and like I said in the interview, we're sort of classing him as an adopted Geordie now, because he's recently moved up to Bladen, so just down the road from us both.
Now, if you ever been to Bladen, you'll know why we're laughing. The only thing that's good there is the road in, the road out there.
I think that's harsh. That's harsh. There's
that's what. When's the last time you went to Bladen? Exactly. You drove through it, man. You blinked.
The Royal Mail place depots in Bladen. So if I ever get any parcels that are undelivered, I pop down to Bladen.
Are they going to get set on fire, man? Would be like living in a skill in this. Anything could be happening.
Anyway, so before we get on to the interview, we've got a few bits and pieces to talk about. First of all, I stuck a thing on the Twitter to mark our 1 year anniversary of setting up the podcast. Put a little shout out on the Twitter and ask people to get in touch with their favourite one-liners from the podcast from this year. And I said, what, my standout favourite is really early on in the podcast we were talking about Zarco, and it was like, what do French people do in the spare time? And you came out with an absolute corker classic.
I can't remember this.
Orgies.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's just so random. There's literally no logic to it at all, and it just
Chrissy,
makes
that's
us
me,
laugh.
mate.
And people have got in touch with some fantastic one-liner. Do you have any standouts that you...
Yeah, by the way, thank you so much for emotionally blackmailing me onto this show. Let's put this out straight. Obviously, this has been your love child, and you love it to bits, and you put so much hard work into this, Chrissy. You just needed a fall guy, which was me, if it went tits. So thank you so much for, for putting on. I'm feeling emotional.
It seriously has for a lot of the weeks in the year. It's been like the highlight of my week. So you'll just get
Emily, if you're listening, step it up, Penny. Get some licorice underwear on. Do anything you've got to do. Step it up.
Seriously though, you get into the day to day, going to work, whatever, training, whatever, and it's nice just once a week to sit down, talk about motorbike racing, get a good guest on, have a laugh, and I'm not just saying that, I thoroughly have enjoyed doing the podcast, and obviously we've had some really good feedback, lots of reviews and stuff, other people enjoying it, and we get a few sort of private messages from people who maybe are having a bad time in their lives, and they'll send us a message.
It could be worse with you too.
Send us a message just to say how much the podcast's helping them get through hard, and things like that literally are priceless to me.
Definitely.
It really makes it all worthwhile.
Totally agree. And obviously Eileen there, she's definitely one of those, and she's going through a real tough time at the moment, and it really drags her up, which drags her up. That's the right word I'm using here, because you've got to lower yourself really, really, really far down to get listening to this show. But once you're here, the only way is up.
So I've got a couple of your one-liners that people have sent in. I'll let you now. I'll let you read them out. There's 3 on there. So these are one-liners that people have sent in. And obviously you don't actually listen back to the podcast, so you probably have forgot about these.
I've not listened to one.
So the first one.
I'm trying to put in context why I would have said that. That's quite awkward, to be fair. So that's a particularly good one. Like a teenage boy discovering tits and cocaine at the same time. Why did I say that?
That was that not doing the TT for the first time?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
First lap with the TT, I think.
Oh, this is a good one. This was last week. Stop crying, Chrissy. It's just a man's penis.
That was the Hilio one, yeah.
Oh my god. And obviously, what was the first episode called?
Missing Finger.
Missing Digits. Missing Digits? My god, happy birthday. And obviously the top one we've got here is obviously the demo in here. Don't stick your finger where you wouldn't stick your cock. To all our males out there, that is some solid advice. Seriously advice. Solid advice. There you go.
Well, obviously we had loads more, but we can't just spend the rest of the episode just reading them out. But thanks to everyone that did message us them in, and I had a proper good laugh to myself reading through them.
Very good. So yeah, I was about to say, obviously we've got a long interview ahead, but what you been up to? Obviously bar the diet and being miserable. I'm miserable.
Not a great deal. One of my main focuses has actually been losing weight. I've been doing my best to eat really well, doing plenty of fitness and just trying to be in a calorie deficit all the time. So it's difficult, but I am enjoying the challenge. I've also recently started just beginning to read Michael Rutter's new autobiography. So the idea is
Life of a Racer, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to try and get through it. It won't be very quick because I'm busy, but I will get through it at some point, and then we'll get him on the podcast and we can have a good big crack. You told us last week you've been doing a bit of reading as well, haven't you?
I've been reading. Well, hold on. I've read it on the flight over to Ireland. I haven't had time to get back into it, to be fair, but I've been reading a recommendation from your Bounce. Absolutely brilliant, man. I feel like one of my mates, Nathan Smith, I feel like he wrote it, and he's a lad who's helping me out this year massively. And very, very inspirational. And it actually sums up sport. And I think, like I say in our interview coming up, it's very much having those opportunities within sport, and obviously practice. It's not necessarily all on talent. It's about how much track time you get, and obviously the money getting into it. And but like you say, I'm reading a book. I'm in my big boy pants. I want to get some fake glasses so I can sit there and pretend I'm you. I'm desperate for it, man. Absolutely desperate. But no, I'm just getting ready for that dreaded thing called tax returns. I've got the end of the month to do it, and I'm shitting myself. I'm not a naughty boy, don't get me wrong, but that sounds creepy. No, it just I don't want to miss anything, and I just hate this time of year. Absolutely hate it. And obviously this diet I'm in competition with, it's not helping. I'm a grumpy little grump thing.
I've another bit of reading I did is I don't usually read magazines that much other than UK Club Sport magazine, of course.
Naturally.
That's the only one I get each month.
But
I picked up
shite.
Motorcycle News recently, and John McGuinness.
Don't tell Zoe.
John McGuinness had done a fantastic. It was like the top 10 best TT riders in his opinion in order, right. And it was such a good read, and he gave the rider and then give a rundown on why and like things about them and like stats and stuff. It was really, really interesting, and it was sort of
Quickly, who was 1, who was 10? I don't want 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Joey Dunlop was the first one.
Naturally, highway. The man is an absolute legend, and that term gets thrown around too much. But and who's number 10?
Do you know?
I'm not dropping hints because I know it's not me.
Yeah,
he won't even know my name, John.
I cannot remember who was 10, to be honest. There was some, but there was
anyway,
some top class names.
Pick it up.
It was a really good read. Also, there's been quite a bit of big news in terms of MotoGP. One of the top riders, Iannone, has been banned.
Naughty boy.
Well, he's been a naughty boy, but he's also been given a big old ban, which effectively finishes his MotoGP career. He's been given a 4-year ban from the sport.
Who the hell came up with 4 years? Why just say that's
So basically,
Jesus.
He's tested positive straight after one of the Grand Prix for, it's called Drostanolone.
That sounds Russian.
I think. It's an anabolic steroid that you inject into your muscles, and it's used for, like, bodybuilders use it. It basically makes you look, and it makes you fuller, your muscles fuller, so it makes you look bigger and like looks more shredded. But really, in our
that's
sport,
not a rider advantage.
in our sport, it's the opposite. You want to be leaner and lighter. You don't want, like, if you look at, I tell you who's a classic example. Look at either Valentino Rossi or Fabian Quartararo. There's literally nothing on them. They look like smackheads if you see them like stripped off. There's literally, they're not.
They're fit as fiddles, but they're just
fit as in like
lean.
running, but they wouldn't be very strong.
They could barely knock out a wank by the look of them. Like
Fabian Quartararo with his top off. Check his Instagram out. He's like a rig, like it's not a
rig,
like
a
stick, and So
that's it. The only man I know that defies that logic is Phil Crow. You know what I mean? He's lost a lot of weight, but I know exactly what you mean.
That's held him back a lot. Is extra weight.
Imagine if he was their weight.
And you think of someone like Danny Pedrosa, how small and tiny they are.
He's a small man.
On that topic, I came across a fantastic movie documentary on
part-time teaching. Look at all this reading books.
I know,
doing documentaries, checking out
great
men on the internet. God, Chrissy.
Great documentary. It's called Hitting the Apex, and it's on Amazon Prime.
What's an apex?
And basically, it's a documentary it follows the top MotoGP guys from, I think it was 2000 and I think it's something like 2012 to 2015. So you've got Rossi, Lorenzo, Casey Stoner, Marco Simoncelli.
Got some heavy hitting
and
names there.
Marquez comes into it. I think there's one more that I've missed, but
I've
anyway,
heard that name Marquez. Yeah,
it focuses on them and like the careers, how they got there. But it's an amazing watch. And
what's this on? YouTube,
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. So you're right. No
and it's quite. There's part of the documentary. It shows you sort of Simoncelli getting up to the main class, and it shows him being really aggressive.
Oh, don't be ruining this.
And I won't ruin it.
Oh, good.
There's obviously there's the famous press conference where Lorenzo's complaining about and being too aggressive, and he says, "I shall be arrested," and everyone was laughing, and then Lorenzo takes the microphone back off him and says, like, everyone's laughing, but like it's a really serious sport, and somebody could end up getting killed, and then obviously very soon after. Simoncelli obviously loses his life, and it shows you the crash on the documentary, and obviously it's sort of when it sends shivers up your spine and stuff. But it's a fantastic watch as a documentary, as somebody who loves MotoGP and who it takes you back to certain days where like big battles and stuff, and it is a brilliant watch. But it's touching.
It's a proper realistic side of the sport, and it's obviously a proper documentary. It's not all, sugar coated, is it? And that's very much part of the sport, and that's why we all love it.
Speaking of the drugs, all the time I've been racing, I've never ever been tested for any drugs. I've never had a drugs test.
What about alcohol tests?
Alcohol tests. When I used to race club racing, you used to have to go in on a morning to get your practice
passes.
Practice pass, and that gave the organisers a chance. Obviously, if you came in stinking of booze, then they could have that conversation with you.
Aye.
And I think that was the idea of having to go and collect them. But other than that,
At BSB,
I've never been tested at BSB for anything alcohol or drugs. I don't drink or I don't take any drugs, so it's never been an issue. What about yourself? Have you?
No.
I'm not in.
Oh, cheers, mate. Cheers, mate.
Have you been tested for alcohol or drugs?
Anyone would look like a pisshead sitting next to you. You know what I mean? Jesus. But no, obviously in roads, it's everyone. I mean,
everyone's on it, or everyone gets tested.
A bit of both. But no, as far as alcohol and stuff, especially at the national rounds, it's brilliant. Because when you go and sign on, they've got the guy there, and he pretty much gets, I'm not even exaggerating, 80% of the lads. Like breathalyzing, which is brilliant. Because I've heard some right horror stories. You know, I've heard of a couple of lads like who were drinking during the racing to settle their nerves, man. And you think it is wrong.
Because they're not just putting their lives at risk either, they're putting everyone else's.
But the public's as well, because obviously, you know, when you go to short circuits, not as far as a spectator, it's very, very unlikely a spectator is going to get hurt. Don't get me wrong, it has happened. But in road racing, you've got Mrs. Miggins having a scones and crumpets at the bloody apex. And you're just thinking, it's such a more drawn-in sport. But anyway, that to a side, I'm not sure if it's the stereotypical side of Northern Ireland, but they're very, very, very positive into the attack of stopping it.
Good eye.
And which is brilliant. But I mean,
do you know anyone that's failed a drink test at racing?
I don't.
What about the drugs? Have you ever been tested?
I've never, which is surprising. I'll tell you what, where I work, I get drug tested all the time.
Right.
And you should see I'm like a medical marvel to some of them, going, this boy's off his tits on Summit, I'm going to find it. You know, hey, if they pay me invoice for sitting on my arse, you know, like taking swabs up, like, you know, anywhere, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, well, you're paying for it, you know, do what you want. But no, as far as the drug side of things in road racing, I've personally never, or even know of anyone who's been done or tested. I think, don't get me wrong, I think it'll be a bit more on the quiet, but if you go to the Northwest, especially this year, you should hear them in the morning, you know, when you go to sign on every morning, obviously before practices, and they're like, can James Hillier come, can Glenn Irwin, can like Dave Murphy come? I mean, the actual list is huge. I mean, it must be 80 to 90% who are called up. It'll be easier to go, can all riders come down, but 10 other people, but everyone's got to go, and you think which is brilliant.
To me, there's no obvious advantages for taking any that can't, like, obviously in a sport like weightlifting, taking steroids is clearly going to give you an advantage. In motorbike racing, unless you could find a drug to like
concentrate, like Limitless, the film,
like to give to improve your concentration. I don't even know if that would help.
People call that ecstasy, but I don't think you should be having that before you go racing.
I tell you,
woo! Everything's bright and colourful.
Have you ever taken Pro Pluses?
Mate, I had one of them 4 years ago. I'm still awake. I do not do well on drugs. Anything to do with caffeine. Red Bull, I'm off my tits. I'm telling you.
I take a lot of caffeine because I drink coffee all the time. And then
your eyes do look a little bit lit.
Pro Pluses are basically just what you would get from like half a cup of coffee, but in a tablet. So that if you wanted the effect of a coffee but you didn't want to drink one, you could just take a Pro Plus. You can just get them behind the counter. They're not it's not a proper drug. But I
think that new camera's just gone bleep, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Just check it.
Hold on. Fine. Oh yeah, it has.
Oh no, we're having a system failure.
I don't know.
Here.
We'll keep going.
You want to keep going with the flow?
Yeah, we'll just keep going.
We're having a technical here. You've just spent a fortune on this. I don't want to fix it, Chrissy.
So
your dedication's on the line here. Fix the no, carry on.
So when I was at university, when we had like big assignments and big tests coming in, we'd be in the library until like we used to do all nights in the library. Where it used to get to a point where
sounds wild.
Someone would go, yes. Pro Pluses were like your best friend to keeping you up all night.
Did you have some bloke going round in a pair of trackies gone, yeah mate, do you want some Pro Plus? Do you want some Pro Plus? I've even crushed it up for you. Go on, have one of them, son. There you are. Stir it in your cooler. Miss will never know.
Obviously there's the safety aspect, like you said. If people were getting coked up before racing, there would clearly be a safety aspect.
I've seen that on night shifts, man.
People taking coke?
Oh yeah,
really?
Like the biggest problem with my job, sorry, I know it's nothing to do with racing, but my job, like, it's trying to get people that aren't on drugs, because obviously all the younger generation, everyone's just going out and smashing drugs and doing drink and that. But like on night shifts, I've seen lads rack up lines off the bonnet. I was only like 16, 17, at the time, man, and they're just racking lines up on the bonnet of the Hilux. Like, I saw one lad,
And
right,
going up a tree with
climbing
a
trees
chainsaw.
in the dark. Honestly, but like now, like I'm a supervisor. My God, you can imagine it just. But that's why we're constantly getting drug tested, and it should be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could like this sport, you could kill someone.
Yeah.
But like you say, there's no drug, as far as we're aware, that can
That
give
would help
you a 2-second advantage, or a second, or even half a second.
Yeah.
Be we should ring the Russians. They're very good at cheating on drugs.
Yeah.
Do we know any Russians? If there's any Russian listeners,
it's not that
to
many
air,
Russian
can you
top
drop us a DM on the
bike
slide?
races, though, is there? A little bit of news as well. Hickman's just changed from the Triumphs in the middleweight class, Triumph 675. He's just moved over to a Yamaha, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And he's also just changed helmet.
Yamaha.
He's also just changed helmet make as well. He's been with Shoei for years. Obviously, he did that Trooper design and everything that he advertised on this podcast. He's just moved to Swami.
Swami. Shamu.
Shamu. S-U-O-M-Y.
Do you remember Shamu?
Shamu.
Yeah, Shamu.
No.
You never heard of Shamu? Wasn't Shamu the whale that, like, Waterworld, that used to, like, splash kids and that?
I'm not sure.
My God, Chris, you get an education. Shamu, he was in captivity. It's a crime against nature. It's a big orchid whale thing.
That's the
in a fishbowl.
That's actually a really good watch on Netflix. It's called what is it, man?
So Peter Hickman, sponsored by Show Me the Whale.
It's anyway helmet.
Get yours now at seaworld.com.
Dovey wears them in MotoGP, and it's a well-known brand, but it's not that big at the moment, I would say, in this country.
Hold on. We've got the world's fastest road racer in them now. They're going to sell like hotcakes.
One thing, just before we get over to the interview, we had a message on our Twitter asking about you calling people young'un, and to be honest, it does make it does make me laugh. Like when we're interviewing Hillier, and you say when you talk about a young'un or Alistair Fagan, who's like much older than us, and you refer to them as young'un. Now, if Alistair's listening,
I'm sorry about this. He's just slagging it. No, right. The way I see it, young'un is just, it's a terminology based on your attitude towards life. So, right, if you're a grumpy, miserable git, you don't get young'un. But if you're full in, like Piggy, War Piggy, he's always going to be a young'un, isn't he? When you go to him, he makes you smile. It is so, isn't it? If you get young'un, right, think about it, right? Every person I've ever spoke to, and you've said, hello, young'un, right? And I work with an older generation. And if they're smiling, they're laughing again, hello, young'un, they instantly get a smile on their face. Mm-hmm. You make them feel younger. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter what age you are, it's about your attitude. And if you're full of life, full of oomph, you're a young'un.
I think it's a northeast thing as well, isn't it? Like, I do hear young'un, but I don't use it. I use it all the time.
Don't get me wrong. If you're a miserable git,
then you're not a young'un.
You're not a young'un, because if you're down and you're dumb, you're like, oh God, you feel. You know when you get someone with a negative attitude about anything, you feel drained, don't you? Mm-hmm. And when you feel drained, what are you? Old. You know, you feel I don't want to do now. But when you meet someone going, hello son, you're like, well, hey, let's go on, let's have let's go need some sugar. You know? You know what I mean? But it's like young'un's a terminology. So obviously sniffing skid marks. Obviously, I think he's good. Like I saw his tweet on the old podcast thing there on Motorbike Pod. He's like, he was still obviously. I was in my dad's ball sack while he was out in Baghdad. Change your holidays, young'un. Change your holidays. Baghdad's not the place to go.
Speaking of like terminology like young'un, places all around the country have around the sort of Derby area, they're called Duck and Me Duck.
Hey up, Duck.
When you go to your, Nathan, who runs BR8, he uses Babby, which
hey up,
Babby. And then
I love that man.
I used to ride for a team. I used to ride for a team called Mission Racing. They're based in Marsden, like sort of in between where's it? Near is it just along from Manchester, near Huddersfield, just along that road going out of Huddersfield, and they call each other Shag, so it's like hey up Shag,
I'm moving,
hey up Shag, and everyone's Shag or Shagger, so like hey up Shagger, and when I was riding for them, I totally got into it, and I ended up calling, like when I was with my mates at home, everyone was.
You didn't call your mother that, did you?
No.
Oh, thank God for that, because your mother's an angel. Your mother better not be. She's an angel.
But anyway, it just became a term of endearment, like hey up Shagger.
Of course it does.
and then all my mates started using it. So even now,
all your
calls me
mates
to
are
the
shaggers.
all my mates are shaggers.
You're all at it. You're all at it. But anyway, yeah, Snip and Skid Marks on Twitter there. Thank you for getting in touch on the show. But obviously, just great for your feedback, mate. Great for your feedback, young'un. There you are.
One last thing before getting there. I keep saying it, but one last thing. We had a message on our Patreon account asking about your dad after his accident. How's his recovery going? And also, I hear your mum's had something recently too.
Right, my mother, right, has got a thing called gluea. You ever heard of that?
Gluea.
Gluea.
Is that like I've stuck together or something?
No, it's well, basically my mum went on holiday. It was my sister's birthday. They all flew over to New York, and she got a perforated eardrum.
Right.
Which would you don't want one of those anyway. Full of foot, like. And my mum is just a proper northeast woman. Proper northeast woman. Doesn't whinge, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Just gets on with the job. Gets on with it. But my mum was not very well, bless her. Not very well at all. And anyway, like, so essentially the ear is like healed internally over, but you get like a backfill essentially on the membrane, I think it is, and it seals over. And it looks like glue. It looks like something else, but I'm talking about my mother here, so I'm not going to mention that. But so they needed. We ended up watching on YouTube a glue ear operation. Type it on YouTube. I think it's like the second video down. And what they do is go in with incision, open it up, and literally pull out strings of glue because obviously it blocks and you can't hear anything. And they literally just bool it out, and then they put like a grommet, like a plastic grommet, into your ear because the human ear heals out over, so it pushes the grommet out, and it's mental. But then I ended up watching like blackhead videos, which are just mid. I'm a proper weirdo. I love watching blackhead and cisbit. Get in there. It's like exercising a demon. I'm like proper involved. I'm like, just get on with it, man. Just pop it. But no, my dad's still miserable. He's still healing, which is good. No, my dad's the last of a dying breed, you know. He doesn't whinge, he doesn't share his problems, but obviously he's got a long road ahead of him. But no, he's getting better. The bone's healing.
Last time I spoke to your dad, he was saying that the bone through his leg hadn't fused together. There was like a gap, and the metal rod was basically giving him his support, and he was talking about shortening the metal rods, giving the bones a chance to heal again. Is the bones back together yet?
No, the bone's bridging at the moment, but it's going to be a fair bit because he hasn't loaded up his knee. The tendons are like not totally knackered, but he's going to have a bit more keyhole surgery on his knee, and it's just it's like any injury. You know, even regardless of it, he is a true young'un, me dad. He really, you know, he just right. We'll keep going. It's absolutely fine, and his attitude is very strong to keep pushing forward. And it's like, funny enough, he's very similar to our guest. He just know what an injury is, does he?
Aye, and you're about to hear a bit more about that. So, all good.
Let's go for it.
We'll get on to the interview. So, welcome, Christian Iddon. So we're joined by one of the unluckiest riders from the past few seasons in BSB, having narrowly missed out on the showdown through injuries every year. However, the luck appears to have changed, having landed himself the best ride in the paddock for 2020 with a surprise move to the Paul Bird Motorsport on the V4 Ducati. Welcome and thanks for coming on the podcast. Christian, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm glad to be on, actually. I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts.
Oh,
yeah, I have, actually. So,
you see these professionals, man, all they have to do is work the odd weekend, you know, Chrissy. You know what I mean? They just listen to the odd podcast and take the piss out of a couple of Geordies. There you go.
So, was that your good missus' family that put you onto the podcast then?
Do you know what? I don't know where I started to get into them, actually. It probably started off when I was down working at a mate of mine, and he said he'd said that he'd listened to quite a few of your podcasts, and then the radio station started getting a bit repetitive and boring, so we figured we'd chuck a few on. So I listened to a few of them. Quite enjoyed them.
Oh, spot on. And speaking of your missus, obviously you're now an adopted Geordie.
Don't cross any lines here, Chrissy. We don't talk about each other's misses as well.
So you're now we're claiming you as an adopted Geordie now. So is it right that you've moved up to the northeast?
Yeah. So I'm all my life I've been just southeast side of Manchester, and I've just literally in the last 6 months or so just moved up to Bladen, so just outside Newcastle.
Oh, the Bladen races. And how are you finding northeast life?
It's all right. I mean, to be fair, like I'm bedding myself in very gently. I've never lived with anyone before.
It's not anal sex, mate. You just jump in.
No, I'm going softly approach. So I never lived with anyone other than me mum and dad. So I'm sort of taking it like I do. The first week I was 1 day up there, and then the second week I did 2 days. So it's like a 2 month affair into trying to move in with someone. So we're pretty much there now. I'm pretty much full time up there, but like obviously I was going to come and do the podcast in person with you, and we assumed obviously that would be up your way, and I'm not. So I'm down in Manchester, so I'm not up there all the time. I've just got too many things to do still in me sort of like old location. So yeah, I'm not a full time Geordie yet. I've not got the accent, but I'm sure I'll work on it.
And have you enjoyed the delights of the Newcastle big market yet?
I didn't even know there were any delights in the Newcastle big market. I'll have to
bollocks to you. Bollocks to you. That's what your good lady's telling you. That's all. Yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing there, Christian. You won't enjoy it. It's just full of hinnies with little skirts on. It's fine. Nothing there you'd enjoy. The Greggs is open till 5 a.m. There's nothing good about the big market whatsoever.
Big market's like it's like the sort of Raji night out on Newcastle.
Don't insult the big market.
It's like it's probably, don't know, all the people that were going out nightclubbing in the teens like sort of 20 years ago. It's like them same people, but obviously they're now in the 40s, and it's like it's exactly how you can imagine it, if I can say that. But it's spot on. Well, let's get the conversation back on what we're supposed to be talking about, bike racing. Obviously, you've a massive move this year. I think you took a lot of people by surprise. We were putting on the rumour mill, we were sticking out that we thought you were going to join the build-based Suzuki team, and then at last minute, obviously, it got announced that you're replacing Scott Redden at the championship winning team. How on earth did that come about? And obviously, you must be over the moon with that.
And I want to know how you do it. So give us all your secrets. That'll be fantastic. Obviously, first of all, he's a fast rider. That always helps.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, you were pretty much spot on with your rumour mill, other than obviously getting it wrong. But you were you were right for the most part. Build base was where I was going essentially, and it was a very last minute thing. I'd been chatting to Paul Bird throughout the whole sort of process, and it's actually the first year that I've ever. See, you get to the end of every season, you end up courting team managers and this, that, and the other, and it's the first time I've ever sent a message to Paul, and he came back with quite a positive sort of response, and this was quite early on in proceedings, and then as time went on, he was always upfront and honest with me, and just basically was going, yeah, I do like you as a rider, but it's not going to happen, and I may look daft, but I'm not completely daft, and I know how the job works, and I knew that I wasn't the favoured rider for that seat, for numerous reasons, and then I don't know, it was just, to be honest with you, it was probably down to it winning that stupid wooden spoon cup, and I got in Park Ferme, and Birdie says, come and see me later at the last round at Brands Hatch. So I did, and he went, yeah, let's do it. So it was sort of out of the blue. It took me really by surprise. Although we'd been chatting, it still took me by surprise because it was never a seat that I was going to get. But by the same token, because the seat was always there was no sense in, not still sort of waiting to see what happened, and it came good. So yeah, it really was a weird one. But the conversation that we had post Brands Hatch was, straight after Park Ferme. It was kind of like he just sort of went, yeah, let's do it. And I drove home that night, and I was thinking, what are we doing? I wasn't actually too sure. I spent 4-hour drive home, like thinking, is this the best day of my life? Is it like what has actually happened? So thankfully he texted me back the next morning going, yeah, I was definitely like, I was telling you the truth, like we're doing it. I was like, right, mint, we're good to go. So then obviously I had to keep it under my hat as well for a bit, and I had to let the other team know that obviously, like I said, I've been speaking to, and they were really good about it, because we had gone, we'd gone quite a long way down the line in terms of deciding that pretty much that was what was going to happen. But then obviously they were very understanding given that the opportunity that's been presented to me. So yeah, I appreciate that one.
So obviously you've just described to us that amazing moment. Now, the mad thing, I'm trying to put it into good words here. It's a bit like I've only really just started to get to know you. Not only because of Chrissy and the BSB and everything, and obviously the injuries that you've gone through this year are just bleeding phenomenal, and how you've been able to keep getting back on a bike and quite frankly being at the sharp end. You're not taking the piss. You're not just there making up the numbers. You're totally being... You're like a tic-tac in a box. You've just been rattled to an inch of your bloody life, and you still be able to compete. So, obviously, how's your pressure feeling going into next year? Hopefully being injury-free and, like this huge opportunity. So, how is your mindset towards this?
Yeah, I mean, I realise that this is the biggest opportunity so far in my career that I've had. Probably secondary to the MV Augusta World Supersport ride that I got. But this now, when you go on the bike that is obviously perceived to be the best bike out there, and with the team that has the track record to prove that it is the best team out there, and going 1-2 in the championship last year, then obviously that puts all the onus on me as a rider. But all through a rider's career, you always chase the best opportunity. We're all like jockeys, so it depends so much about the horse that you're on how well you can do. So it's never ever a level playing field. So I've always tried to pit myself against the riders that I've been against, because the golden rule in racing is to always beat your teammate, and I've always done all right at that. I've had a lot of teammates, especially through the last 4 years. I've had a lot of lads alongside me, and a lot of very good lads. And I've always been able to pretty much see them off. I'm sure they'd all argue otherwise, but it's always been pretty much in my favour. But I've just always had, I don't know what it is, just every season there's a story, and every year I get to every year and I think, right, no stories this year. But racing's not like that. It's you get a silly little niggling injury or something happens. At the end of every year, I do like a little book for sponsors, and you actually forget what happens during a season and the number of little things that have gone on. And every rider's little storybook would be the same, full of not excuses but reasons why things did or didn't happen. But it is quite amazing when you actually put it all together. And just this last 3 or 4 years, I've just taken a bit of a beating, really. But I just don't want to give up on the dream, is the honest answer.
Damn right.
And looking into the 2020 season, do you have a clear goal in mind, aspiration, or like specifically somebody you want to beat, or like
British champion? British champion.
Well, yeah. I mean, like Dom said, I mean, I'm not the...
No, go on, say it from your balls, mate. From your balls, down the phone right now. I am Christian Iddon, and I'm gonna be British #1. Go on, do it with me. Go on. Doesn't matter. No one listens to the show. Come on, commit. No, say I am gonna be British #1.
And it says how many listeners you've got, so I don't dare say it. There's too many people listening.
Three of them are me gran, me grandma, and me other mam. So go on. Just tell us, British #1. Go on.
I only ever go racing for one outcome, and this year I've definitely got the package underneath me to make that become reality. Previous seasons I felt like I should have had the package, and it never has come to fruition. But this year there's pretty much no denying that it is. All the stars should be aligned, so it's on me.
Oh, good, Matt. Well, that's the honest way of doing it.
Definitely. And obviously, Dom mentioned about riding through injuries. I remember commentating on a race myself when I was out injured at the time, Silverstone 2018, and you had a tremendous crash on the Saturday. Everyone thought you were out of the showdown contention, and then you went out there and raced the next day. Was it a broken collarbone there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happens with me in injuries. Is I don't want to tempt fate, but I end up doing injuries that are rideable. So everyone thinks that I'm some kind of like Superman for being able to do it. But the truth is, I think any rider with the same injury would still ride through it. So unfortunately, I keep getting these little niggling ones. So the first one that was probably rideable was 2015. on the Halsall Suzuki. And I had a bit of a high side coming out of bottom bend, and flipping Jack Kennedy, bless him, couldn't miss me. And I broke one of the bones down my leg, and I managed to race the next day on that one. But then that ruined me for a long time thereafter. And then
the mad thing is, right, we've got people complaining about man flu, you know what I mean, and coming off of colds and all sorts.
Oh, no, that would wipe me out.
But you know what I mean, though. You get people breaking nails and being, quite frankly, tarts about the situation. You're talking about breaking your legs, young'un, and then you're straight back out on a bike. You know,
I know, but
brilliant. It is brilliant.
It sounds so massive, but like you say, oh, I broke my leg on a road. But it's so you've got two bones in your leg. One's weight bearing and one's not. So I did the one that's not weight bearing. So yeah, it was broken, but it wasn't like broken. You know, there's differences.
Either that or your doctor likes you and he's just telling you the opposite. He's like, oh shit, that's a load bearing one. Well, tell him it's the other one. You'd be like, yeah, go for it, son. You'll be fine. We'll fix you when you come back.
But the Silverstone one was basically, so it was the last race before the showdown. So it was pre-showdown weekend, and I was fully in contention. And it was actually qualifying. Stupid little high side on you know, like when the track's a bit damp, and I just got caught out by a damp patch, and it just slapped me down for me. And I was like, yeah, that horrible moment where you knelt on the flipping grass and you go, oh yeah, that's, you know, I get this sick feeling. It's not necessarily pain, but I get a sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I know that I've buzzed something, and I felt sick. I was like, yeah, that's it, broken it. And I thought, and for that split second, you think, like, all the effort that you go through, which everyone does, and it's all ruined in one little slight error. I went to the med centre and they x-rayed it and everything, and yeah, it was fully broke, like quite fully broke. There was a feral gap between the things.
I remember the x-rays got tweeted all over the internet, and it was like a proper snapped in half. It wasn't just like a little fracture.
Yeah, so they took me to the med centre and whatever, and basically declared me unfit, and it was really starting to hurt at the time. I don't know why. I think the muscles had started to contract, so it was the muscles that were hurting. So, but while I was in there, I was decided I'm going to race, but the race was that day because of the triple header. It was actually, I'd basically had 3.5 hours, I think, till the start of the race. Mm-hmm. So they went, "You're not going to race." I went, "Right, try me." So they did the fitness test thing. So what he did, so they got basically a broomstick, and I had to hold the broomstick, and like he just launched it from side to side. And I was doing okay-ish until he yanked it, and that pulling motion really flipping hurt. I went, right, enough. So he went, right, you can't race. I said, I'll be back in an hour. Give me an hour. Right, whatever he says. So I went back to the motorhome, and I just knew that once this muscle spasm went away, I'd be all right. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the motorhome, got out my kit, got all sorted, went to the physios. They strapped so much strapping around just to hold it in. They basically built me a new collarbone just by strapping, you know, that special funny coloured tape.
Yeah, the white stuff.
And it was unbelievable. Mm. And so then I went back to the med centre. I went, right, do another fitness test. So he got the broom out, and I knew that the only way he could hurt me was by when he yanked it. Mm. So all I did was just pushed him clean across the room. So I knew if I kept pushing, he couldn't pull me. So I kind of cheated the task a little bit, but we got through it, and then he still wasn't happy, so then he wanted some press-ups. So I'd done some press-ups, and I even done one on one arm. So then it was like, right, that's it, good to go. So went out and raced, and flipping ended up breaking down. But I think I got 5th in the first one, and then broke down in the second one. And who I was racing against didn't get any points that weekend. And then we had a technical fault in the last one. I missed out by 2 points or something.
Yeah, I remember it, and you proper went for it as well at one of them. I think you took the lead of the race, or went up to like 2nd or 3rd or something. And it was at one point it was looking like Mission Impossible. But I think you have sort of built that reputation up over the last few years as being like a really tough cookie, and like no matter what hits you get, Knock Hill this year broke your leg, and was it the following race you were back, or you didn't miss much anyway?
No, yeah, I was so. Although I've had all these injuries, I've actually not missed a great deal of racing, just because I've had to ride through them. But it's just, like I said, it's the necessity to do it because you know what's on the line, really. So if that one in the showdown, I knew that at the point of going out there, I wasn't seventh or something. So it wasn't like I was fifth and somebody could knock me out of contention. It was that I'm out. So that means if I don't score any points, then I definitely can't get in. So if I don't race, I'm not in. Whereas if I do race, even if I scored 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 points, I've got more chance than, you go from it's an impossibility to actually, if I just go and ride and I do all right, then there's a chance. And I always try and work on, if there's ever a chance, then that's what I'm going to work on. So that's what happened. It never worked out for me yet, but
Bloody hell. Well, okay, let's go back a little bit here. Now, that mindset, that keep going mindset, even through injury. Now, where did that come from? Now, obviously, Chrissy's been telling us that you're a very, very, very successful supermoto rider. Tell us a bit about that, and how did that attitude grow from there? And, or was it just totally like, fuck it, I'm going to be British champion?
That's the end goal. And the goal, I won a British title in motocross. I won quite a few in supermoto. And basically, I came into road racing because I wanted to, or short circuit racing because I want 3.
Bloody hell, hold on. So what age did you first get on a bike then? If you've done motocross, supermoto, bloody hell, you've done a lot in a short space of time.
Day dot really. So my dad he tells me he was a successful racer, and he's got some pictures and stuff. So to sort of prove it, although he's got they're on video, and
okay, hold on, before we go,
a lap at Donington takes like 3 minutes. In fact, I remember the first time I went to Donington, and I was on a KTM RC8 thing, and he went, "Are you taking Craner curves flat out?" I went, "No, Dad, of course I'm not taking Craner curves flat out." He went, "Well, you should. We used to." Right? I said, Dad, I says, you're off your head. There's no way you can take Craner curves flat out. So I went and spoke to the guy who was basically the best in the KTM Cup, and he went, "No, don't be so daft." So I says to my dad, I went, "What on earth are you on about?" Anyway, I then saw this video of him going down Craner curves. The thing wouldn't do more than 35 mile an hour. It's no wonder. Anyway, it started out basically from day dot because my dad was racing, so I was pretty much on a bike from zero really, and started motocrossing at 6. And I was pretty good at it, but like I said, I won 1 British title, but I was never going to be good enough. That was pretty clear. I had a little stint at downhill mountain biking because my dad ran the team, but I wasn't really keen on the getting back to the top of the hill bit, so that didn't last very long. And then my dad had always sort of asked me about the short circuits, and I'd never been interested. And even to this day, I still prefer the off-road side of motorbiking. I really do. That's right. That's where my heart lies. That's my passion.
Do you do a lot of training still within because you don't just switch that off overnight? Do you still get off doing off-road work? Do you do a bit of training, motocrossing or not?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I do enjoy it, and I probably get more of a buzz out of that than the short circuits. And the supermoto thing, and I don't do supermoto anymore at all. But that's more because it's not as viable as it used to be. So my dad had always asked about, do you want to do short circuits and this, that, and the other? But he never pushed me. My dad's not one of them pushy parents, and he's sort of the opinion that if I didn't want it, then I was never going to be successful. So he never actually sort of pushed for it. And then I sort of started to come around to the idea and was like, yeah, actually, let's have a go. But I'm not badly off. I'm not going to do no sob story, but we couldn't afford to go straight into short circuits. And actually, supermoto at the time was sort of like this up and coming thing that was actually it was in quite a boom at the time. And it was a good way for me to get accustomed to having slick tyres on tarmac. And it's actually like a really perfect way to move from fully off-road to go into tarmac because you've got like this full-on halfway house. Mm-hmm. So it was never really intended for me to stay doing it for as long as I did. The truth be told, it was sort of like a bit of a stopgap while I sort of got myself going and got used to tarmac without spending a load of cash and sort of running out of cash before we went racing properly. But I got pretty good at it quite quickly and sort of ended up doing it for a lot longer than we intended to, really.
How many years is that then? When you're talking a lot of years, how many years of being like the front end of supermoto?
I started I don't even know, but I started my first race, I was 18 years old. But I won the British title in my first season.
Well done.
Well, for some reason I just took to it quite easily, and some things are like that, and for some reason it just worked, and I enjoyed it, and whatever my riding style, it just worked. We went straight to the European Championship straight out, and then straight to the Worlds not long after that. My second season I was doing Worlds. So, but it is quite a nice, easy sport to pick up. The bikes are very forgiving. You can ride a lot if you want to go around Europe, especially. So, it was a surprise to me, and how quickly I got sponsored. So I got taken on pretty much straight away by a guy called Dave Clark over in the UK, who brought in a brand called Husabergs. He imported them, and they're a pretty good super motorbike, and just the ball started rolling from there. And then before you know it, you're getting, factory contracts off. The main one for me was Aprilia. I got the official Aprilia ride, which at the time they had the V-twin, which was their revolutionary thing, and this, that, and the other. And as a what I would consider back then as me being a kid, and having a factory contract was pretty cool. And it's sort of before you know it. So it snowballed very, very quickly from just being a hobby of motocross to let's have a go at supermoto, to being, actually we're doing half decent here. And then because I was doing half decent, you sort of stick at it. It's very hard to move away.
Switch that off, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. When you're being successful and getting a bit of donga on the side for it, then it's very hard to actually then take another backward step, or not backward step, but like as a person, that you're going to not be as successful and competitive, at least for a period of time. So it's quite hard to turn that off. But it just got to the point where it's like, right, if we're going to do the road race thing, then it's going to have to be like now or never sort of thing. So there came a point.
And when you were competing on the world scene for the supermoto, was that sort of around Europe or all around the world?
To be honest with you, it was pretty much all around Europe. I mean, the Supermoto Championship was based in Italy, really. I think a bit like, how like MotoGP has like 4 Grand Prix of Spain.
Yeah.
We had the same in Supermoto, but basically around Italy. So I spent most of my time as a youth in Italy. So I was like 1 week in Italy and 1 week at home. Was pretty much 3 seasons of my life was like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Pizza and Italian models, mate. What else do you want? You know what I mean?
Well, there was plenty of pizza. I remember that bit.
Yeah, bollocks to you, just because you've got a missus.
And then going back to the road racing side of things, what was your first like proper championship that you did?
Well, it was we sort of phased it in. So like we were looking at it and how to get into it. Cost's always the big thing, isn't it? So it was like, how do we get into it without spending a load of money, which we don't really have? So at the time, Aprilia were actually really good to me, and they gave us an Aprilia Tuono R, and I rode it in the Street Fighter B class at Thundersport, and it was excellent. It was just a good way to get into the racing. I did a few races at that. I think there was only about 3 or 4 of us in the class. So I was definitely in the top 3 or 4. No, but I quite enjoyed it, and that was pretty good. And then and that would have been 2008, I think it was. And I actually did a junior superstock race at Alton on a Honda, and I'd never ridden a 600 before. I'd ridden the bike once. We went to a track day at Croft, actually, rode it. It wasn't particularly fast or whatever. Went to Alton Park and finished, qualified 3rd and finished 5th. And that was my first ever.
Was it wet?
Short circuit race. No, it was fully dry all weekend.
But
the trouble is, it sort of, it gave me that sort of false sense of being too easy. And I was like, this is.
Not many riders could say that. That's brilliant.
But that's not a good thing. So then the year after, I rode for KTM in World Supermoto. So actually at BSB that year, they had the KTM Cup. So we're on the RC8s. So I did a few rounds of them and was always at the top of that. So that was really good. And it was a good way for me to learn and do whatever. And then at that year, I also did a Stock 1000 race again at Alton Park. And again, I'd ridden the bike once. We went to Cadwell on it. I just borrowed a bike, a Fireblade. And I finished the race 5th on that one. So again, it was just like one of those things where you go, actually, give me a bit of practice on this, then we'll get going. And then I decided, right, time to stop Supermoto. 2010, I convinced a team to take me on in Superbike. At this point, I think I'd done 7 club races, so I wasn't out in my orange bib, but I got special sort of like whatever dispensation to let me in. So my 8th ever race was the first round of BSB 2010.
Bloody hell! How did he get on?
And
how did he get on?
I scored points in the first
crap.
outing, and then at the can't remember whatever round Thruxton was. It was either round 2 or 3. I got into Q3 because I remember out qualifying Keogh, who was on the HM plant bike at the time, and I think I qualified 6th or 7th. But the season actually, to be honest with you, ended up being cut short. So it was a great introduction, but this is why I was saying the other thing is actually really bad about how easy I found it, because I came in almost like not arrogant. I don't try to be arrogant, but probably inside my own head, I thought, well, this is easy. I've got the talent to do this. Mm-hmm. So I completely underestimated that in tarmac-based racing, the team, the bike, all the surroundings is so important. And actually, in off-road sport, it really isn't. So if you go motocrossing, if you put the best motocrosser on a bike, clean out of a shop, he will blitz 99.99% of the riders. Sort of similar in Supermoto, but then you get over to road racing, and if you haven't got the team around you, then it's just not going to happen. Mm. So I was sort of a little bit, I was very naive to that fact, and I was sort of like thinking in my own head, like, I can do this, and the stock races had sort of proved it. But then we got to BSB, and I was like, oh yeah, no, this isn't quite working out too well.
A bit like maybe going to the casino for the first time and winning loads of money. It's kind of like the worst thing that can ever happen. Exactly. You think you've got a talent for it.
Yeah, but I learned that lesson, I think, pretty quickly, and I soon sort of reined my own neck in, I think. And the season was sort of cut short, and I nearly actually quit racing because I had some good sponsors at the time that I'd brought from Supermoto that were really helping me out, and we didn't end the season on the Superbike, and I did a wild card at World Supersport, which I didn't do very well, and I did a couple of races at British Supersport, and again I actually didn't do very well. So I was like, this is ridiculous. I didn't enjoy the racing. It was a completely different paddock, it's a much colder paddock than off-road side of things. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling that. I wasn't feeling quite so loved. Obviously, it wasn't at the top of my game, so I wasn't feeling quite so loved. I was used to having, although I was a big fish in a small pond, but I still quite liked my little pond in Supermoto sort of thing.
Yeah, sure.
So all of a sudden, I was like, there's just this nobody. I wasn't really enjoying it, and we were spending all this money, and thought, right, what do we do? And then the Tag Triumph job came along, and I stayed with those guys for a couple of seasons, and it was just that was the perfect way for me to learn, really. That's a family-run team. They were only up the road. Me and my dad used to go and get the bike, and we'd go to Mallory on a track day, and I just sort of pounded out laps and learnt my craft, and really that was the perfect setting for me. At the time, it was Billy McConnell and Paul Young and Sean as my teammate, and basically employed Billy and Paul to do the job, and I was just there as a sort of paying rider. Actually, but that sort of worked for me because I could just sort of do my own thing, and then before I knew it, we were back to right. We're doing good again here, so it sort of got the ball rolling again.
That was actually the first memory I've got of your name. I was doing a track day at Cadwell Park. It was in 2012, and I was doing the Triumph Triple Challenge at the time, so just like a standard Triumph, and just getting used to riding a 600 for the first year. And I was like going up the first corner at Cadwell into Charlie's One, and I could hear all this like popping and banging behind, and then got down up the straight, and you flew past on one of the Tag Triumphs,
waving his arms, going, "Get out my way, you knacker! Get out my way!"
And you mentioned Paul Young there. He was actually involved in how I got into doing the Triumphs. Do you know what he's up to? Like, he was an Aussie bloke, wasn't he? Do you know what he's up to these days?
No, but he's got the world's shortest arms. He's like the Velociraptors or something. Have you ever noticed that? He's got the world's shortest arms.
I thought you were describing a Yorkshireman there. Short arms, long pockets.
It's like there couldn't be an elbow in the middle. And he does this thing where he never puts his knee down. It's quite amazing. I think he's doing some journalism work in Australia. Last time I heard. Yeah,
Right.
proper nice bloke. But all Aussies seem to be, don't they?
Right.
Yeah. So they were. Well, I had two Aussies. I had him and Billy. So yeah, it was a nice team environment, and that was good. It was really, really.
Yeah, you seem to have had it seems to be a running pattern that when you've had Australian teammates that it's brought you on and you've done quite well. So hopefully that omen will set in again next year, and you never know. But and then going from the tag triumph onto what the next sort of time I remember you were in the World Superbike paddock. What was sort of in between that and what team did you join in World Superbikes?
So again, it was sort of like a bit out of the blue. So I went to do a supermoto race at the end of whatever year it was when I was riding for Tag Triumph, and it was the Marco Simoncelli Memorial Race. They used to have this supermoto race, and previously, it was going back before, I nearly got into World Supersport. So the Park and Go team, when they first set up, and obviously they won the World Championship with Chaz Davis. My old crew chief at Aprilia Supermoto went to work for them when they set up, and he said, "Right, come and have a go, and we'll meet the boss." And I actually went and did a track day at Mugello, and I was actually going to go straight to World Supersport years and years and years ago with Park and Go, but the World Championship wouldn't let me in because I'd never raced before, which is fair enough. Anyway, a few years later, I went and did this supermoto race, and I'm very good friends with the Park and Go team owner. And we were at this race, and he was running at the time. I think they just won the World Championship with Chaz that year, I think, actually, and they were going to move to MV Augusta. And I sort of got chatting to him, and I says, "Oh, just joking, tongue in cheek." I went, "Oh, let me ride the second bike," and he sort of went, "No." So I was like, "Okay, then never mind." And then he went, "Actually," he says, "Yeah, you can, but you need 400,000 euros." I went, "It's not going to happen." I don't know. I didn't have that in my back pocket at the time. So
Who the hell does? Jesus.
Well, you know what? You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. So anyway, that was it. We had a good weekend. It was only tongue-in-cheek conversation, so I didn't really think anything of it. And I flew back home, literally got off the plane, collected my bag at the baggage belt, and I got a phone call off him. And he goes, "Right, you've got the ride." I says, "I haven't. I've got no money." He went, "That's fine. Don't worry." And that was that. So I went to World Supersport with MV Augusta. So it sort of, came out of nowhere. And we had probably the best handling bike I've ever ridden. What a beautiful bike that was, but it was just hideously underpowered. The thing made 112 horsepower. And we just struggled all year with it, really, in terms of power. But I was always able to qualify quite well because I could string a lap together on my own. But getting a race, you're getting eaten up. But I managed to put it on the box. We got an engine upgrade for the last round. The last 3 rounds, we got an engine upgrade, and I got on the podium, Magny-Core, and broke down the other 2 in the top 5. So once we got a bit of power under it, it was then a brilliant bike. So I was actually gutted that Park and Go then lost the MV Augusta the following season. They had a 2-year contract and lost it to Iannone Racing. And then Cluzel took it on and did very, very well on it. I then went to Alstar and rode the Bimota, which was like a really cheating CRT MotoGP thing that we raced in the Superbike Evo class. We got kicked out because you're supposed to make 150 of them, and they didn't make on. I think they made about 4.
Is that the Bimota? Is that the ones with they've got a swinging arm for the front suspension, and they're like a really weird?
No. It is a pretty normal bike, to be fair. Basically, they just, at the time, the BMW was the best engine. They took a BMW and fabricated a chassis around it. Completely cheap. So it was a brilliant bike, to the point that was the year when they had like split rules. So we were in the Evo class, so it was like standard ECU and standard engines or whatever against that. It was like two classes split into one.
Yeah, I remember. Was this when like Split Lath Aprilia and who else was in it that year? Steve Brogan was on the BMW.
That was in the BSB, so this was on the World Superbike. So they did something similar for the other one.
Right. Okay, got you.
So it's pretty much the same split of rules. So they did it for the Worlds, and the Bimota was competitive. You know, we could beat everyone, and they were on, you know, the BMWs and the Kawasaki's. There was David Salon was on the Kawasaki. He was a good lad on the Evo. Sylvain Varier had actually just come out of European Superstock and rode the Evo BMW. He was one of the top doers on there. Canepa was on an Evo Ducati. So there was some real good doers in it. And it was an enjoyable year, but it was never ever really going to go anywhere. And then I did a wild card at Assen in BSB on it.
I remember this. I was going to mention it.
Yeah, and that really was my then. I knew I wasn't going to end up in World Superbike anymore. So I'd started already sort of sowing seeds in team managers' minds. And then I put her on pole at Assen for BSB, and that sort of sealed the deal. And then I ended up coming back home. So
that's. Yeah. I was going to say, because I remember you in British Supersport, and then there was a few years where I hadn't heard your name, and then the next thing you were on pole at Assen, and I was thinking, bloody hell, like what's his parents been feeding him?
Don't worry.
But so then was it straight into Tyco BMW from then?
No, I did a season on the Halsall Suzuki bike.
Oh yes, I've got that.
And that was a pretty good season. Enjoyed it. And then on to Tyco, and 4 years at Tyco, and just. We said before, just 4 years of stories, unfortunately.
Was the first year with Halsall, was Colin Davis your team manager there, or was it Jack Valentine?
Oh no, Jack Valentine was a team manager. Colin was my crew chief.
Okay.
And I had
the Colin Davies.
What do you mean the Colin Davies?
Wait, he doesn't smile, Colin Davies.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's it. He's my gaffer now.
That's the one.
He's my God, honestly. Oh, this is you've put. Yeah, I know you don't buckle under pressure, but I do. Hold on, he's worked with you. Oh my God. Oh, he's actually worked with some fast lads, Chrissy. Oh shit.
Yeah, he was previously in MotoGP before then as well, wasn't he?
Oh my God.
So went from the Halsall job onto Tyco BMW, and then you seem to have been there for a good few years now. How many years is that?
So I'd done 4, and at first it was honestly like a dream come true. That sounds like I'm going to start a really bad story now. It still was a dream come true, but like the first season I was leading the championship after 3 rounds. I was like, this is brilliant. You know, I'd got on the BMW at the time, was pretty much the bike to be on, jumped on it, and all of a sudden it was like, yeah, this is easy again. This is good. But then just things tailed off a little bit, and I've just had 4 seasons really of being not getting the results that I wanted to get. So, you know, that's basically been the story of my days at Tyco. It's a great bunch of lads. I've loved being there. I'm dead grateful to Philip Neal for all the years that I've been there. And, you know, we've left on good terms, so there's no reasoning why. You never know in the future, and that's how good of a terms that we've left it on. But it was definitely time to move on. You know, for some reason, it wasn't bearing fruit. So it was definitely a mutual decision that, I mean, to be honest with you, even halfway through this year, I knew I wasn't going to stay there, and I didn't have a ride as a backup. I just knew that I couldn't continue in the same way. So I had 4 good seasons with a great bunch of lads, but we just needed a change. You know what it's like. We stopped doing date nights together and that sort of thing. There was, you know, it just wasn't going to continue any longer.
So obviously at the beginning of this interview we talked about this huge opportunity that you've been given. Now I'm going to ask, take that away, describe to me your dream opportunity. MotoGP, F1 driver, window cleaner, I don't care. Describe to me your dream or absolute dream opportunity. Is this it with Paul Bird? Which is still up there with MotoGP. This, you know what I mean? Is this it?
Any bike racer would want to ride a MotoGP bike, because I would just love to know how they feel. Just to know. I know what my bike feels like, and I know if you're not like near the limit that they're actually really horrible to ride. I want to know how it feels once you get to the limit on a MotoGP bike, and there's not many riders that do it. So the first thing is whether you can. You know, you see so many guys that jump on one that are really talented, and it takes them a while, and they're like 5 or 6 seconds off the pace, which is honestly like being on a different track. So I think you need a bit of time. So it might even be the most horrible experience of your life. So I'm not sure I'd actually want to ride a MotoGP bike unless I got a proper shot at it.
Hey, mate, keep dreaming. It might happen. I want to feel a pair of fake boobs. You know what I mean? That's still up there. It's realistic.
I actually went when one of the first meetings that I had with Paul Bird, and he went, "Oh, Phil Borley, who's one of the main men up there." He was really pushing for you to be on our CRT bike a few years back. I was like, well, why didn't you ring me up? You know, I couldn't believe it. So the conversation had been had about me in MotoGP. Anyway, never happened. So we'll not dwell on it. Never mind. My dream opportunity, I would love to race in AMA Supercross. I would absolutely love it. That's my bread and butter. That's the best thing in the world.
I tell you what, on this show, we've got a nasty habit of getting dreams coming true here. We've got everyone a job so far, so, just stay by the phone, young'un. Just stay by the phone. You never know.
And obviously, you've since joining the Paul Bird squad, you've been out for a cheeky test at Cartagena a couple of, was it like last month or something? What was your first feeling like with the V4, and how did that test go?
It went real good, actually. I'm really, really glad that we got out. First up, like, normally your first test is around other people as well. There was every possibility that the first test would be at the first BSB test, and there's always so many eyes watching. And even though I've been racing for a long time, it's always a bit nerve-wracking. And what it's like when you're racing, you try to put on this brave front, but inside you're absolutely bricking it, and you put the visor down for the first time, you're like, oh my god. So like we just went to a track day at Cartagena, and it was just a nice way for me to sort of get accustomed to the lads. I've been with the same group of lads for 4 years, and even just changing personnel, working out how everyone works, and then obviously jumping on a new bike. It was nice to do that sort of. It wasn't behind closed doors because it was a normal track day. It was just a no limits track day, but it was behind closed doors to the racing fraternity. And yeah, I just loved it. At first I didn't love it. Like the first few sessions, I was like, oh my god, this is really, really different to what I'm used to. But session on session, I really started to enjoy it. And I'm just excited really having ridden it. I'm excited for the season ahead. And I'm just glad to have got those couple of days out, because it sort of saves time when you get to the start of the season later on. And just getting comfy on a new bike, it takes time. I went out and it felt so alien, and you think you're doing lap record pace and you're like 20 seconds a lap off the pace. You're going, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. And I seen that when you were out there, Tommy Bridewell, one of your championship rivals for this year, was out there also. Did you stick any naughty passes on him just to give him a taste of what's to come?
Yeah, well, actually, like Tommy was out there, and Brad Ray was out there, and Dan Cooper was out there, and Tom Ward was out there. So there was a few races out there, but I didn't really see anyone on track, to be honest with you.
Hold on. Speaking of Cartagena now, was it that track you were talking about that had resurfaced? What did you make of it? Because we've had a lot of upset listeners say we've just slagged it off. But what did you make of the conditions out there? Have you been before for a start?
Yeah. So I thought it was going to be really quite indicative of. I thought it was going to be a really good sort of, because I've been there so much, I'd know how the bike would feel in comparison, and lap times would compare. And I got there and I was like, This is horrendous. In all honesty, I hated it.
The track.
Yes, the track.
Oh God.
No. This is what we've heard. Like neither me nor Dom have been to the track since it's been resurfaced, but we had a few lads out there testing recently, and the lads that I've spoken to have all said they've made the track worse, and they've resurfaced it, and then they've chipped it away, and there's like bits of where they've filled it in, it's like really slippy, so you've got like real good grip, and then the grip suddenly goes or something.
It's a very, very funny surface. So the way I would describe it is like, I don't think they've resurfaced it. What I think they've done is like covered it in something, some kind of. It's like an oily substance. So I was getting wheels in places, but it gave no feedback when you were sort of at full lean angle, and the bike would just spin. But I knew it wasn't the bike because it was impossible. I was getting fourth gear sort of spins upright. You just know that no matter how much power any bike's got, it would never do that. So it was kind of taking it with a pinch of salt, and it was quite funny because actually one of the I know the No Limits lot quite well, and one of the girls came over and said, "Oh, can you just send a quote over about the new Surface?" It's like,
that's what I'm worried about now.
Yeah. And I sort of told her my feelings. She went, "Oh well, don't say that then." And she sort of took the umbrage a little bit at the time. And I went, "Well, does anyone else say it's good?" She went, "Oh yeah, everyone says it's mint." I went, "Oh, okay." I said, "Is there anyone that's doing any good lap time?" She went, "Yeah, they're doing great ones." I went, "Okay." So it was a timed track day. So I knew at the time I was like 6 seconds off my best round there. So she came back with some times, and I felt better about myself because I suddenly thought if she came back and said someone was doing like record pace, then I was in trouble and I better speed up. But she didn't. So it's just a funny surface. But having said that, from day 1 to day 2, the pace went up by like 3 seconds, and that wasn't me going up by 3 seconds. It was just the track's just going to bed in. It's kind of it's like when a track's new, right? The oil comes out the surface. Now the surface isn't even new; it's just been painted with this stuff. But the more that it gets ridden on, the more that this greasy substance is going to come out of it. It's more than rideable. It's not a problem. It's just a bit disconcerting. That's all.
Yeah, sure. So by the time everyone gets on their No Limits track days in February or March, it's going to be beautiful. So don't listen to this show. It's going to be amazing. On your next holiday, to all our listeners, it's going to be grippy as balls, mate. It's going to be great. So don't you worry about that. Christian's bedded it in there. Cheers, mate. You're a good lad.
It looks nice though, because it's all nice and black. It looks like
there we go.
Like it's mint.
And like, speaking of sketchy conditions, have you ever considered real road racing? Have you ever thought about the Northwest TT? Obviously, your dad being involved with the Silicon team. I'm just, has that ever been something that, they've said, no, we don't want you doing it? Obviously, Paul Bird's got a huge reputation and a very successful reputation in roads as well. Is that something that's been on the sly there? Yes.
Yeah. Yes, basically, is the short answer. I love the roads. I go every year to as many roads races as I can because I like the atmosphere of it. I like it's a little bit more pure in I don't know what in like what sense.
Less of the bullshit type of thing.
I just yes.
Yeah. Yeah, good luck.
And I just like it, and I just know that the buzz that I get off racing around a circuit must be absolutely amplified to the nth degree when you're doing it. And my dad's raced a TT, and he's told me he doesn't want me to do it, and he's told me himself that it is the most amazing thing. He says you do a good lap round there, and he says it's you tingle from head to toe because it's just amazing. So, and he says that, and then goes, but don't do it. So
how can he tell you that and say don't do it?
I know. So the only real issue I've got is basically my family don't want me to do it, and it's them that got me into racing, and I just feel I owe it to them to not do the one thing that they.
No, which is fair enough, mate. Which is totally fair enough. You know what I mean? Honesty is the best policy, isn't it? And I totally respect that. Totally respect that.
And truth be told, I may hate it. It's dead easy for me to sit here and go, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do the roads, mate. I'd be great." But then I might set off down Bray Hill and go, "Oh nah, you're all right. You can keep that one."
Dom's shaking his head.
Oh, no. don't grass us up.
Oh well,
I'm saying you would love it.
Yeah, no. So I do. I love the thought of it, and to be honest with you, I'd actually prefer to do the Isle of Man than any of the other ones. I think like the Northwest and that, you can end up getting dragged into a race that you're maybe not even ready for. As a short circuit racer, people are. If I went to the Northwest, I'd be expected to do very well straight away.
Yeah, and
that becomes dangerous. Whereas, and you're then in a mass start, and you can get in a slipstream and probably end up getting dragged along at a pace that you're not ready for. Yeah. Whereas at least at the TT, nobody actually expects you, and for the majority of the time, you're on your own, and you can just sort of build up, and you're just allowed a bit more leeway. If I went to do the Northwest and I decided it's not for me, I'd probably get called a few names. If I went to the Isle of Man and pulled out because it wasn't for me, no one would really say anything. So it's a different mentality, even though the risks are sort of the same. Mm-hmm. So in a funny way, I actually think going to the Isle of Man would be a safer way of doing it.
Yeah.
But as well, from a personal side, I don't know if you can be fully competitive doing both. Now, obviously, at the moment, Hickman's doing an absolutely fantastic job, but until he wins both in the same year, it's yet to be proven that you can do both. I think one has to detract from the other.
Yeah.
And I don't think that can be helped. Even if you don't think it is, I think subconsciously it can't help but do. You know, that it's a big thing, especially those 2 weeks on the island. And that must take it out of someone's season. You know, if something's going to detract from my end goal, which is what I didn't speak about before, then you know, then at the moment it's not for me. But who knows?
And I know you mentioned earlier that you enjoy a bit of motocross training off the side, and I've seen before on like some sort of social media or whatever, you've posted like screenshots of like various fitness things that you've done, and you clearly like put a lot of time and effort into your fitness preparations. I once seen you like cycled from back home in like near Manchester, like up to, you must have been coming up to see Nicola in the northeast or someone in the northeast, and you'd done like, I remember seeing it, you'd burnt like 6,000 calories or something ridiculous. What sort of training do you do as like over the off season? What's your main focus?
Yeah, well, I mean, that ride itself wasn't the best one. I hadn't long been seeing her, or not too long. So I thought, I know, I'll impress her. I'll ride to her house.
Oh, love does stupid things, don't they? They are.
Well, it's 247 kilometers. It was, but it's not.
Jeez.
Most lads slip in. Most lads just slip into the DMs, but Christian rides like 6 hours up over the, you know, the, what is it? The right in the middle, isn't it? The
yeah,
Dales.
straight over the Dales and everything, whatever them. It's not. Is it Pennines that I went over? I don't even know.
Anyway. It's the Pennines. I could just see you turning up, honestly. dripping like a broken fridge, going,
well,
hey, babe.
I think it was going to take me about 9 hours ish.
She's sitting there with her knickers on for 9 hours. Nicola, if you're listening, God love you.
You know,
God love you.
With me food in and everything, I was ready to go. But I did it when that flipping beast from the east, you know, that flipping weather storm we had. Yeah. So the warmest it got that day was -6. So I set off. Once I'm gonna do something, I've got this thing right. So if I have to be accountable if I say it. So if I say it, I have to do it. So I purposely told my mate the night before, I'm going to do this cycle. So that meant that I had to do it, because there's no getting out of it once it comes out of my mouth. So I set off at 6. It didn't get light till 8:30 because it was middle of winter or whatever. So I set off in the dark, pitch black. I had the worst headache by the time I got to the first village, which is only 6 miles away from me. So I didn't have any overshoes, because I don't know why I didn't have any. So I had 3 pairs of socks on over me boots. Set off, and it was just the most horrendous journey ever. And I mean ever. It got to the point where I went over the Pennine bits, and I was still about 100k from Nicola's house, which is a good 3.5 hours on a good day, but ended up being about 6 hours. And it got to being like 2 inches in snow, and I was on my roadie, bear in mind, which actually handles quite well in snow. And I thought, I'm actually gonna die, because I had no phone signal. I was on top of the moors where I hadn't seen a car in 2 hours. And I thought, if I actually stop now, I probably will die. You know, like, no one's going to find me. So I just carried on.
Oh, my God, imagine that.
My gears had frozen, so I couldn't change gear for most of it. All I had a camelback on, and that had frozen up. My eyelids had frozen. I couldn't blink, because my eyelids at one point had frozen to the top of my eyes, so I couldn't blink. So there was like icicles of tears rolling down my eyes. And then at one point, I'd been sat down pedaling for a bit, and I got to like this hill and I was stuck in a gear, so I had to stand up. I went to stand up, and my arse had froze to the seat. My shorts had, so I ripped the arse out of my shorts because they froze into the seat.
Oh my God!
It was horrendous. So 12.5 hours after setting off, I finally turned up, and obviously being, you know, freshly caught in, I was like, I had been all excited when I set off, and once I got there, I just wanted a bath and bed, in all honesty. I just didn't want to do anything.
And she's still with you. My God. So you were late, horrendously late, and you couldn't deliver on the go. So what? It's a good thing you can ride a bike, son, because your relationship stuff needs a good tuning. Yes.
Aside aside from the training, when you're not at the racetrack, do you do any other sort of work or like?
He's writing love poetry. That's how much this guy is.
How do you fill in your time?
Yeah, so I do enjoy a bit of graft, to be honest with you. I probably only enjoy it because I'm lucky enough that I don't have to work. I have been looked after all these times, so it's not that I'm not getting looked after. It's just that I do enjoy going to work, and I go and work for lads who I like and do jobs
Cut
that
trees.
I enjoy. Today, well, the last couple of days I've been doing a bit of tree work. I often go and stay with a mate of mine who used to race down in Norfolk, and we work on the Norfolk Broads doing a bit of key heading. For a good few years, I was pretty much a full-time builder on the side of being a full-time motorbike racer. I just like something that gives my day some structure. I don't like being lazy, really. So if you know that from 7:30 until 4:30 or 5 o'clock that you're at work, then you know that you structure your day around that. So I quite like it, really. And
good man. At least you're not lazy like this school teacher next to us here. You know what I mean? 3 a day a week. You know what I mean? Oh God. So have a chat with our Chrissy here. You know what I mean? Look, he's a rock star, and he still goes to work. What about you, Chrissy?
No, I do. I honestly think, like, I was thinking of taming it down this year to try and concentrate more. And I was thinking about it like earlier on a few weeks ago. And the reason I actually go to work is to make myself better at racing. I think it's always helped keep me grounded. I've lived a very fortunate sort of lifestyle since the age of 18 in terms of, not that I've been getting paid loads of money or nothing, but I have been getting paid to race motorbikes. And you can sometimes lose sort of reality, I think, quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly how hard it is to earn 100 quid. I know how many block and brick I can move in the space of earning 100 quid, So I know how many trees that can be cut down and put through the chipper. So it sort of keeps me grounded, keeps me around people that don't care about the fact that I race motorbikes, which is good. Because you go to a motorbike race and you do pit lane walkabout, and people do genuinely look up to you, and it's lovely, but it can sort of end up getting to your head if you let it. I don't want that to happen. So yeah, I turn up after a race meeting and I make everyone's brews, and I think it's good for the head.
I agree with that.
That certainly sort of resonates a lot with like what my experiences and like what I've seen, and I know exactly what you mean. Like people can lose themselves, and it's funny when like I've grown up in the paddock from being the age of sort of like I started racing at 9, and you get like a warped sense of money when you're like when you're like 12 or 13, and like. A set of tires is like a couple of £100, and like a new clutch will be like 600 quid or something, and you kind of just get used to like these numbers as if it's like just talking about them as if they're nothing. And then when you start earning money yourself and you get that sort of the realization of how much these things are, and like you look at the Moto 3 for instance, and there's like lads riding around on like 60 grand bikes, and you're just thinking these lads it's possible they'll never earn 60,000 quid after tax like in a year, and then they're like 12, 13-year-old, right? It's a bit mental, to be honest. But I remember exactly when I was racing in Superstock 1000. At the time I was working in Nando's a few years ago, and I know exactly what you mean. You would go from, I know it's just super stock, so it's not exactly the same as you, but I would go from like sort of battling for a race win with like Danny Buck and Richard Cooper, be like, you getting autographs and pictures and whatever, and then the following day I would be cleaning the toilets in Nando's.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly the same. Regardless of the class, you still, it's that weekend life, and you were doing those amazing things, and then you just come back to reality with a bump. But I actually think it's a good thing. One minute, like you say, you're winning races, and the next minute someone's throwing your chicken back in your face because it's not cooked right.
And here's me thinking you were running around the house naked, dressed as a Monopoly man. You know what I mean? It's nice to hear that you're actually, honestly, it's actually really refreshing that, because like you say, I call it Rossi syndrome. Everyone runs around the... Well, it is. I do call it Rossi syndrome when you get people walking around going, look, son, wind your neck in. You're not a rock star. You know what I mean? But it's nice to hear that you are grounded. You want to be grounded, so you will be grounded. That is really refreshing to hear, and that's great.
I try to be every now and again, and you have to catch yourself on, don't you? You catch yourself saying or doing something. You're like, right, okay, rein that in.
You live in Bladen now. That will never. You will never be above your station as long as you live. If you live in Bladen, you're laughing. You really are.
Do you get recognised much where you live and what's the weirdest place you've ever been recognised?
I always get recognised in a co-op. I don't know if it's because I only ever go to the co-op or that people who go to the co-op like motorbike racing, but always in the co-op, and it's dead because I'm always like raiding the sale rail, so I'm there like, getting some knockoff hummus or something, and they're like, "Oh, you Christian Iddon?" I'm like, "No, I just look like him." No, the best one ever. I got stopped for speeding a few years back, and he pulled me over, and then they do that thing over the radio, don't they? And they go like, "What's your name and your date of birth?" and blah blah blah. So I gave it over. And the person on the other end of the radio, he went, "Is that Christian Iddon, the motorbike race?" So I was like, "Yes, that's definitely me. Do I get off?" He went, "No, you don't." I was like, "Ah." But it completely made the whole like 3 points and £100 fine totally worth it, just to have been recognised over the police radio. I loved it.
Is that Christian Iddon, the paedophile? No. It's the bike racer, Hinny. Oh, sorry, we've got one on record here.
I remember a few years ago as well. You were sticking out these piss take videos on Facebook of like doing like training and various things. I thought they were fantastic. Are we going to see any more of them over this winter?
Yeah, we're going to see something because I've got to admit I've let my social media side slip. I'm not good at it. I sort of forget. So yeah, I'm going to try. I am going to try and do a lot more sort of, those sort of things. They're good fun, aren't they? I lost a bit of that. I did enjoy doing those things, and as much as you then get hated by a few of your peers because you are essentially ripping the mick out of them, it is,
Well, we'll get involved next time you're up in Bladen. Give us a ring. We'll meet at the local Mackey's and we'll do some daft.
Out of the sort of superbike grid, do you have any particular good friends, or do you have any particular enemy, like people you don't like?
Enemies.
I don't really have many friends, if I'm honest with you.
You've got us. It's fine. It's fine.
Most of the people I always used to hang about with were all in sort of Superstock. I've got a good group still in Superstock that we call the Youth Club. So it's like Rob McNeely, Barry Teasdale, Morfitt, who now, he did race a few in stock, but isn't now. That sort of group. And we have a good sort of, every evening at the races, we go around to Youth Club and just sort of chew the cud, and it's good fun. I don't really hang about with anyone in the superbike class. Got a lot of respect for everyone. I don't really hang about with anyone. Just a bit of a, at the racing, it's kind of funny, especially in superbike, because everyone's in garages, so you don't see many people. Mm-hmm. It's actually a much more sort of sociable atmosphere when you're in the in the awnings. Because you walk past, don't you? You walk past people's awnings and you look in and you say hello. Whereas in garages, you never walk past a garage. They're always, the doors are always closed. So I can spend a whole weekend and pretty much not see another superbike rider, other than on track. So it's kind of a weird atmosphere, really.
I like how you've swerved the question about anyone that you don't like.
There's no one I desperately dislike. There's no one I desperately dislike. I find someone has to do something pretty bad for me to dislike him. I'm quite...
Hey, I tell you what, he's a hell of a good... he's a political speaker here. Have you noticed when he left Supermoto, he left Europe, Brexit happened, and now he's dodging questions like a bloody yellow-bellied snake here. What's going on?
Dodging, honestly.
I'm not dodging. Give me a name. You wouldn't even say you're British champion. Give me a name. I want a name. Oh, it's a good name. Give me a good name. Josh Brooks. Oh. Is it Josh Brooks? No, is it Josh Brooks?
I like Josh.
I like Josh.
No, I do, honestly. He's like one of my favourites. He's one of them people I think is completely misunderstood.
Can you get him on the pod? Get him on the pod. Like
you should do.
No. You get him because you're mate. Go on, get him on the pod. That. It won't be as good as your interview, obviously, because he's Australian. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
No, good man, good. But no, I tell you what, honestly, I'm just looking at the time here, and we're flying through. You're always having good time and good crack and everything like that. But yeah, thank you so much for getting on this pod. You've been absolutely mint cracking, brilliantly honest about everything, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, cheers for having us. Like I said, I do listen, and I probably will listen to my own one. So that one listener again.
We really appreciate you coming on. And before you go, is there any what like your social media and your website, merchandise? Where does everyone find it?
Well, I don't do any social media, as we just said, but I will do. So it's pretty much Christian Iddon for everything. That'll be Twitter, and then Instagram and Facebook's Christian Iddon Racing, I think. But you'll find me.
Is Frostbite Dick.
It's kind of a bit of a weird name, so it's pretty much only me that'll come up. So you're pretty good to go. Yeah, and then I do sell some merchandise. Blackwater Graphics do it, so if you head over to their site and get representing, I've seen a few people with my hats on this year, which made me very, very happy. So I appreciate the support. And hopefully I'll see a few more people with it next year, because hopefully I'm going to do all right.
Yeah, well, I've got to be honest. Going into BSB next year, there's a few changes. Obviously Bradley Ray's going over at the BMW, and obviously you've moved. But in terms of for me, I think you would be a great outside bet for taking the championship this year. And I think you can definitely, obviously the bike, no question. And I think as long as you stay injury free, you've shown your pace. I personally think you're a better rider than Tommy Bridewell's, and I think you're certainly capable of taking it to Josh Brooks. So I think we're in for a really good season. What's your best your race result so far in Superbikes?
Superbike, I've had a good few seconds.
Well, I'm pretty sure that we'll be seeing that first victory coming very soon. But from me and Dom, we'll wish you both all the best for the 2020 season. Really looking forward to you taking it to the front, guys. And we'll catch up soon.
Perfect job. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
Take care, young, and enjoy your motocross career after this when we've got you a job. See you in a bit, son. Cheers, mate.
Bye. So do you know what? I think that was my favourite interview that I think we've done on the podcast so far. Really enjoyed that. I know it was a bit long, but had loads of good crack and such a nice, grounded, down to earth
What
lad.
a lovely, lovely man he is, and obviously he listens to the pod, so he's up there with Jesus, in my opinion. But I
totally understand what he was saying about his family doesn't want him to do the road, so therefore he respects that. But
I totally agree.
Deep down, I think you'd make a great.
He'd blitz it. I honestly, absolutely think you'd absolutely blitz it. I really do. Mm-hmm. But the mad thing is, it's like he's not hiding behind. At the end of the day, that's his belief. He doesn't want to. He wants to respect his family. A lot of people going, well, we haven't got the money, we haven't got this, we haven't got that. He's not whinging. He's just being very off the cuff, honest. Mm. And it's like, no, fair enough, mate. You stick with your guns. Mm. Stick with your guns. But like you say, I think he'd be a fierce competitor. He would be a fierce competitor.
I know I said at the end of the interview, but to me, as long as he stays on that bike, I think he could mount a real serious championship campaign. I know Josh Brooks is a class rider, and obviously he's really good on that bike, and he's
grounded with it, isn't he?
He'll take some beating, Josh, but
this is British Superbike.
For example, when Josh Brooks was on the Yamaha, Tyrone McKenzie was beating him at the end of the season, and I wouldn't. It's easy to forget that. Yes, Josh Brooks was fantastic this year, but it's, as soon as Tommy Bridewell got us this on the same bike, Tommy was there. I don't think there's any reason why Christian can't be there as well.
Totally agree.
I think having another rider in the mix with them, it'll
freshen up the championship.
That's it, yeah. So
without a doubt,
looking forward to it.
Good
anyway,
stuff.
Any crack for this next week? Are you doing anything over the weekend?
I'm back racing. I'm back racing
at?
again. So I'm racing with the British Mini Bike Championship. Mm-hmm. Down at Tattershall, which is this Sunday. So hold on, I'm trying to think. When's the pod going out?
What day is it today? Thursday. It'll go out on Patreon tonight, and then it'll go out to the rest of the public the following day. So
obviously,
midnight tomorrow. I think I'll stick it out.
At some point, obviously, by the time you hear this, hopefully you'll get a bit of time to come down and experience the British Mini Bike Championship. Honestly, it's just not for kids. It's serious. It's so fast. It's such high paced. And no, I was very lucky. I was meaning to mention this on the last podcast. That I got on board one of Moto's 140. It's supermoto range. It's literally out the box. Off you go. Fully adjustable suspension. It is absolutely class. Now I've got a total unbiased view in the fact that I've never been on a pit bike. I've been on a little 2-stroke little 85 supermoto.
Was
thing.
the KTM 85 with supermoto wheels?
Yeah,
that
and that is class. But like a pit bike, you're thinking, oh god, in my head, I'm thinking it's going to be a cheap Chinese piece of shite. I was overwhelmed how good it was. I'm not just saying that. It was mint. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not, it's not the exact same time. I'd like to be out in Cartagena. I'd like to be out in Spain. I'd like to be out superbike riding. But beggars can't be choosers, Chrissy. But honestly, it's a fantastic. It's keeping my head sharp, and I'm doing twice as much riding as I've ever done. Normally, I just get on the bike at Croft at the end of March and then go straight to the northwest, and it's like, whoa, you just can't replicate bike time.
And you came back with a bit of silverware last
I did. So it was just like I say, first time on this bike. It was tricky conditions, and I loved it. Yeah. Absolutely loved it. Now I got a couple of podiums like from mid grid, and absolutely loving it. So obviously, thank you to BRA. They, like I say, we've mentioned it a few times. They've got their own podcast called Make a Talk, and it is a brilliant podcast. So I've been told, because I've never listened to a podcast in my damn life, but.
There's a rumour going round. They started it.
They started it. That's pretty much it. But no, so I can't thank the Moto a lot enough, because the bike is honestly, they've turned up with it, literally peeled the stickers off, the brand new stickers, and went off and got the podium on it. Absolutely class bike, and I think they're the biggest importer of bike parts. But if you want a shock, go to a British mini bike round. Like, for spectating, all you bike fans who are listening to this, who want to get their fix on racing, there is a round coming up this weekend, and just check out their website. It's proper vicious, like it is seriously vicious.
I seen that BR8 had Richard Cooper on the podcast this week, so if you're wanting to hear about how he's been getting on over in New Zealand and anything since he was on our podcast, then you can check theirs out.
Obviously our podcast is better, so you're not missing anything. He'll be kicking me when he sees me next, but no, that's so I'm looking forward to the next round on that. Looking forward to get back on the motorbike, and obviously the KTM, and just having a general, pardon me language, but a general fuck about, Chrissy.
Are you doing much graft at the moment? Whereabouts are you grafting?
Oh, mate, I found something that I thought I'd never find again the other day. We call it woodland treasure. Right, do you know what woodland treasure is, Chris?
I'm guessing it's going to be a euphemism for something sexual.
Yeah, damn right it is. Right, basically when I first started, right, we call it woodland treasure. Now, back before your phones and stuff, obviously all the lads, right, woodland treasure is porn. Right, like bin liners of porn mags, man. And you just think to yourself, right, who has found, right, like gone round and gathered magazine after I mean, a bin liner full of dirty Raz mags, like proper filthy 70s porn. And you just think, who's gone off into the woods because they're too scared to go to the tip, and just gone sling straight off into the nearest wood. So anyway,
I've got my own theory on that. I reckon it'll be some like raging wife that went upstairs. They've went to put the socks in the drawer, and they've what is this filth? And they've stuck it all in a bag, furious. And when they've been out walking the dog, they've thought, I'll show them, and just chucked it in the woods.
Ironically, the probably just goes back into recycling. Honestly, it's funny as hell, man. You've a bin line of like 70s dirty porn, man. You're like, oh my god, back when mullets were on. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe it. So obviously, all the lads took 10 minutes break, and obviously just started filtering through dirty old porn mags. I was bad laughing. But woodland treasure, don't let your kids go off walking in the woods by themselves. It's dangerous.
But they're just a quick, I suppose it's a kind of like an apology. We didn't get around to asking Christian some of our questions from our patrons. We covered some of them, but there was a few good questions, and the interview just went on so long we didn't quite get a chance to answer. But one of the good questions that I thought was sort of different, Kathy Jones Parry said, if he could choose a skill or a trait to steal from one of his competitors, what would it be and why? And I'm going to put that question to you, Dom. If you could steal one of your competitor's traits, so like a skill or just a,
John McGuinness's wallet, is that a skill I can nick?
McGuinness's wallet. Right, we'll go over that one. And other than that, we're pretty much covered. Also, we had
the show. Thank you for joining us.
Ben Wrench asked a good question about why the BMW's never really cut it at either BSB or World Superbikes for the championship. It's never been consistently there.
Well, the
Ducati's
Rider. You see, I think it's the Ducati dominance that have taken the shine away on that. Hold on, Siri's kicking off. Is that the new footage? That's crap. That.
It just keeps cutting.
Can you get Woodland Treasure on it?
Hey Siri.
Siri,
what is Woodland Treasure?
Shut up, Chrissy.
Okay, I found this on the web for what is Woodland Treasure.
Oh, please, what is it?
Woodland Treasure. God, jewelry made it. Nah, there's nothing. Woodland Treasure. It's a business. Not that type of business.
Chucking bin lines are pouring into the wood. But anyway, what was the question?
It was about the trait. If you could steal one of somebody's trait. Oh no, we've answered that. It was the BMW not being competitive.
Well, I just think it's the Ducati dominance. I really do.
I know, but you say Kawasaki have dominated when
stock. You see, you look at like when BMW was like, it used to dominate stock massively. But when you look at the front lads, stock 1000 this year. Obviously, Cooper was on the Suzuki, and then you got Lee Jackson on the Kawasaki. You fourth, even though your bike blew up half the year.
There was, I personally think especially the Superstock Championship in BSB, the rules are very even and sort of it gives a lot of the bikes a good
level
chance.
playing field.
But what's interesting about racing is sometimes it's not. The idea of racing is it's a show. It's show business at the end of the day. So, for instance, there's been times where like a bike on the road. So, for example, this year, the bike on the road that you got from BMW, you had to take things off it to take it to Superbikes. So it depends on the rules of the championship rather than like what you buy in the showrooms. But good question. I mean, I'm trying to think if a top. Somebody you would class as a championship contender has been on a BMW in say World. I mean, the last time they were running at the front in World Superbikes off memory would be sort of Leon Haslam and Marco Melandri were quite competitive on them years ago.
I just don't think they're pumping the money into it, which is fair enough.
This year, I mean, Tom Sykes has been very, very fast in qualifying, and when he's by himself, he can string a lap together, but the bike's just so slow on the straights that he gets mullered. Kawasaki's and Ducatis just fly past him. So, good question anyway. Interesting one. Have you got anything else to add?
I was about to say this is a long ass show.
This is our longest podcast ever. Yeah,
is it? Yeah. Jesus, let's stop now.
Yeah. So obviously, huge thank you to all of our patrons that are supporting us online.
Tango Training as well.
Big thanks to Incon Tango Training, our regular sponsor they've sponsored this full series, and also big thanks to your Motorbike.co.uk. And remember the discount code CTR, all capitals, and then lowercase pod, get 10% off. And there's some really, really good shit on the website, so check it out. That's it. End of series 3, but hopefully we'll be back next week anyway. So it's
bloody hell, can we not have a break, man?
Not likely. So
not likely.
We'll get some good guests signed up for next week.
Definitely,
and we'll be back.
Awesome.
Back online. So
well, it's been emotional, young'un.
Yeah. Well, happy 1 year.
Happy birthday, young'un. Happy birthday.
And a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you that have been listening, and especially the ones that are spreading the good word. And it's nice to see our numbers growing each and every week. And we do really appreciate it. So looking forward to what this year brings. Obviously, we've said we're gonna make more of an effort with the whole YouTube setup, and maybe we're getting a studio sorted, and all the money that's all the money that's been donated through Patreon and through our sponsors, we're really putting it to good use, and hopefully we'll just keep growing and going on to bigger and better things.
Bring on the patrons. Awesome.
So, thanks very much. Best of luck racing this week, and we'll
right,
catch up next week.
Right.
Cheers, mate.
See you soon.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers, young'un.